To the DoD symposium in Nashville two years ago, and I think it was the general running DISA said, I shouldn't have the job I have because I don't have the certifications and things I need to do this job. And why is that? Why do I get away with that? And he put it out there for everybody, all 5,000 people in the audience, just to kind of chew on for a little bit. Right now, we don't have that particular. Yes, you're going to have to go through that gate, that hoop to do something about yourself, because we know immediately everybody will get all defensive and say, well, wait a minute, I've been doing this for 25 years, I am an expert, look what I've written. How do you prove that somebody's smarter than the next person? That's going to be the very hard part, and frankly, I don't have all the answers on that one, but it is part of the questions to be asked, is which group certifications do you run with? How do you do that? What's the term? I was 18 when Maryland went to 21 for drinking age, so it's, what do you call that? There's a magic word for that. When grandfather, what do you get grandfathered into? That's not the right term, but whatever. I could go to DC to drink when I was 18, which was just a dumb idea, but beyond that.
You didn't think so at the time.
I thought it was brilliant.
That was also at the time.
Well, my parents why they kept handing me the keys. But anyway, we have to figure out the balance on that, because everybody's going to get all defensive, and if you come at this and make people defensive, we're going to fail. We could probably succeed on the awareness part. Awareness just can happen all the time. You can listen to a podcast. There's so many different ways. It's probably hard to do awareness really wrong, but to do education and training, we could do that really wrong in the sense we could really offend a lot of people.
There was a speaker yesterday that said that his agency gives people a 15% one-time bonus if they get a certain certification.
That's kind of nice.
I endorse that.
Yeah, I mean, there incentives like that sound maybe reasonable. Other incentives to try to tell the industry about, here we'll give you some tax break. Probably they'll laugh at us and say that's a nice tax break, but you just maybe hire 10 more people, so I lost all the money I would have earned. So there's balances, and we're going to have to figure out very slowly.
Yeah, especially as you look to the formalization of the training programs and the establishment of threshold credentials and the maintenance of those credentials. Because I know that was a discussion that we had with George and I worked in the DIE many years ago about how that was going to happen with the services. And I don't believe it's been answered. The Marine Corps objected strenuously to some of this, and they already executed a fair amount of it. To include practices that allow penalty fees for poor or employee performance, which is an entirely different spectrum of behavior. So if this is going to make that transition, which it appears that it will in the auspices of DHS, that's something to be looking out for.
It's the beginning. There'll be lots of little things that we'll be able to say, look what we did, and then somebody will say, but you still haven't done. And that's, we're going to have to be fighting that traction kind of point of view.
Going to your idea of your concept of grandfathering, while it may or may not affect the people who are already in place, it sounds like the most logical way to approach the educational requirement is through OPM making it a position requirement for new hires. And also from the contract side, that in order to be qualified for certain labor categories within contracts, you have to have certain certifications. To be honest, take away the cybersecurity element entirely, I'd like to see all the network engineers be damn required to be Microsoft engineers or the equivalent, which typically doesn't happen.
I look at a room like this, I see these little panels. We're going to have a whole long set of panels, and people are going to walk up and put stickies up there and say, wait, I think they should have this, they should have this. Things will congeal down to, okay, now we agree that there are these 10 things that job should have. And so, yeah, we can then start pushing on the contracting models, and we can push on the folks who are coming into the jobs. But then there's still the thousands of us who've been doing this for a long time. And just because I have a master's degree doesn't mean I should be, driving a tank. We have to figure out the balance there. I don't know the answers yet.
So what's going to happen with the work that y'all have done tens of years ago in terms of development competence and requirements for training?
Hopefully they'll be reused. If they were good, if that was good work and it made sense, that material should not be lost. So a lot of the baselining exercises will be to force these agencies who've done the studies and done the work to bring it back onto the table, and as we aim at specific parts of our strategic plan, get all that material out there and work from there. So it's not just starting from scratch and saying, you know, I've never met Alan Power and Sands. I mean, we're going to have to know that we've met them. We have to know we've met CompTIA. We have to know we've met all these other folks who are pushing on the industry in smart ways. Sure.
What's going to happen to the Federal CIO Council CIO certificate that they endorse at universities and the NSA NIST Information Security Officer courses that they endorse at universities?
We're going to have to put them next to each other and see how they compare and see
how they fit into this
and what they incentivize. It has to fit into this. So the people who I don't know all the people who are doing those specific parts of those roles, but we need to pull them in and make sure that what we'd like to have happen in the future is when people start coming up with ways to get the right kind of people for their agency, that they stop at some national place and say, oh, look what everybody else is doing. I can build off of that, rather than I'm smart enough to figure this out on my own. I'm going to call it this, I'm going to run it this way, and go out and fund it in a way that doesn't marry up with these other programs. That's not a great answer, but we're aware of both those programs, and I'm not personally, because I'm relatively new to the program, but there are people who have the role of component leads who are aware of those programs, and that's going to have to be part of the conversation. And how do you marry those things up? We have scholarship for service things, we have the National Centers for Academic Excellence. How do the word standardized, but at least can we normalize what we understand we're getting out of those programs in a way that then they can be reused and smartly reused or smartly incentivized so that we get the right people aiming at those programs. Does that help at all? Or more questions? Eventually my BS meter will go way off the charts. Sir?
So I guess it's sort of the same answer for the University of Maryland, University College type programs that government and industry have had a lot of input on developing, saying this course isn't of interest to me, but these would be, and helping shape that program and others around the country. Is that same kind of interface going on between NIST and the government and those schools? Because a lot of work's been done by everybody on those as well.
We're going to have to figure out all that work that's been done and kind of go back to it, so that when somebody hears an advertisement for University of Maryland, University College and Cyber Warriors on Federal News Radio in DC, yeah, they understand why they want to go into that career field and what they get out of it.
All kinds of people, from Melissa Hathaway to schmucks at Cisco, have had a lot of input to that particular program and others around the country. And it seems to me that, one, we shouldn't paddle down that same water again.
We're going to have to figure out, was that a good beauty contest, and do we want to have another one in California? Do we want to have one in Texas? Where do we do this from? Where do we build it from?
Well, and
how do we do it fairly is the hard part. You know, just because they're close to a bunch of government agencies shouldn't be the only reason they've got the coolest program.
Yeah, there's one in California. There's others.
Well, I was going to ask the question because there's a lot of things being thrown up here. Who's going to be the referee for all this? As to what the plan is going to be, the national strategy. Because the technology is always changing. And the vendor community is, and not to stop innovation, but the vendor community is throwing a lot of things up for the feds. Yep. Somebody's got to be there to determine what works, what doesn't, and does it fit the plan.
That's the tricky part, because a fair amount of this is not necessarily in that operational space where there has to be a conversation between the folks who are adopting technologies and saying what they need and how they need, what kind of people they need to run those technologies to protect their networks and to do the things that those boxes and those technologies promise. How to take that immediate feedback and then tie it into training and education is really the hard part. How big we draw the circle around NICE is a fair amount of that's going to be personality driven between these agencies that have operational protection roles, the CERTs, the DHSs, the DODs, the DNI with the protecting our networks and stuff, and back into so I don't know who's going to referee it. NIST has the job as a leadership role to provide some of that. Howard Schmidt needs to come in the room every once in a while and say, by the way, guys,